Zuri pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the car window, trying to steady her breathing. The highway signs blurred as they sped past. 3 days. It had been 3 days since she'd been walking home from debate practice, her mind still buzzing with arguments about climate policy, when a car pulled up beside her. "Zuri, I'm Diane, your aunt's friend from book club," the woman had said with a warm smile. "She asked me to pick you up. There's been a small emergency at home." Something had felt off, but the woman knew her name, her aunt's name, even mentioned the book they'd been reading at the club. So Zuri had gotten in. Now her phone was gone. Her family was hundreds of miles away. And the small emergency story had changed a dozen times before they stopped pretending altogether. The car smelled like pine air freshener and something else. Fear, maybe her own. Zuri glanced at the front seats where the woman and man sat, talking quietly. They called themselves Diane and Robert, but Zuri had heard the man call the woman Vanessa when they thought she was asleep. "We'll be stopping soon," the man announced. Eyes meeting Zuri's in the rearview mirror. "Remember our talk? You're our niece visiting from Chicago. If anyone asks." Zuri nodded, the now familiar knot forming in her stomach. She was 14, top of her class, captain of the debate team. She should have known better. Should have called her aunt first. Should have told someone where she was going. "I need to use the bathroom," she said, keeping her voice steady. The woman turned around. Her smile never reached her eyes. "We'll stop at the next gas station. But remember, Robert will be right outside the door. Don't try anything foolish." Zuri had already tried foolish the first day. She'd attempted to signal a waitress at a diner by writing "help" on a napkin. Robert had caught her, crushed the napkin in his fist and squeezed her wrist under the table until tears sprang to her eyes. They hadn't let her out of their sight since. 20 minutes later, the car pulled into a gas station. It was small, just 4 pumps and a mini-mart with faded advertisements for cigarettes and lottery tickets. Robert got out to pump gas while the woman walked Zuri to the bathroom, waiting right outside. Inside the tiny graffiti-covered bathroom, Zuri splashed water on her face. Her reflection showed dark circles under her eyes, her usually neat braids now messy and coming undone. She needed to think. This might be her only chance for days. The bathroom had no windows, no other exits. Just a sink, toilet, and a hand dryer with an out-of-order sign taped to it. Zuri took a deep breath. She remembered something her history teacher had mentioned during their unit on World War II. How resistance fighters would leave small signs for each other, hidden in plain sight. When she walked out, the woman gripped her arm just above the elbow, fingernails digging in through Zuri's sweatshirt. "Let's get some snacks for the road," she said loudly, steering Zuri toward the mini-mart. Inside, an older man with gray hair was paying for his gas. A teenage boy stocked shelves in the back. The cashier, a tired-looking woman with frizzy red hair, barely looked up from her magazine. "Pick out whatever you want, honey," the woman said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Auntie's treat." Zuri nodded, walking slowly toward the candy aisle. Her mind raced. She needed to do something, anything, but they were watching her too closely. Then she remembered something she'd seen on social media, a hand signal for domestic violence. It had gone viral on TikTok a few years back. The gray-haired man was now at the refrigerator section picking out a bottle of water. Zuri moved toward the chips, positioning herself so he could see her, but the woman couldn't. She pretended to examine a bag of chips while holding her hand up as if she was thinking, 4 fingers raised, then slowly tucking her thumb across her palm. The man glanced at her, his expression unchanging. Had he seen? Did he understand? Zuri's heart sank. Maybe it was too subtle. Maybe he wasn't paying attention. "Time to go," the woman called, already at the register with a few items. Zuri walked slowly toward her, passing close to the man. As she did, she heard him whisper so quietly she almost missed it. "Help is coming." Her heart leapt, but she kept her face neutral as the woman paid for their snacks. Back at the car, Robert had finished pumping gas and was checking something on his phone. "Get in," he said, not looking up. Zuri slid into the back seat, her mind spinning. Someone had seen her signal. Someone knew she needed help. But would they act fast enough? Would they remember the car details, the license plate? As they pulled away from the gas station, Zuri glanced back. The gray-haired man was standing by his truck, phone to his ear, watching them leave. "What are you looking at?" the woman asked sharply. "Nothing," Zuri said, turning back around. "Just tired." Well, perk up. We've got a long drive ahead, and we need to go over your story again before we get there. Zuri nodded, but inside, a small flame of hope had ignited. She wasn't sure if help would come in time. She didn't know where they were taking her or what they planned to do when they got there. But for the first time in 3 days, she wasn't completely alone. The car merged back onto the highway, picking up speed. Robert turned on the radio, some classic rock station playing songs from decades before Zuri was born. The woman pulled out a map, an actual paper map, not a phone, and they began discussing routes, talking as if Zuri wasn't even there. Zuri closed her eyes, pretending to sleep while she listened. They mentioned a cabin, something about meeting someone named Keith tomorrow. They argued briefly about whether to take the main highway or back roads. The highways have cameras, the woman pointed out. The back roads take longer. And we're already behind schedule, Robert countered. Besides, the plates are clean. Zuri filed away every detail, every name, every scrap of information that might help later. If there was a later, hours passed. The sky darkened. Zuri's stomach growled, but she didn't ask for food. The less attention they paid to her, the better. They stopped once more for gas, but this time Robert stayed with her in the car while the woman went inside. It was nearly midnight when they turned off the highway onto a smaller road. Trees pressed in on both sides, their branches creating tunnel-like shadows in the headlights. Zuri had lost track of where they were, somewhere far from home, somewhere with mountains and forests instead of the flat suburban landscape she knew. The car slowed as they approached a small motel, its neon vacancy sign flickering in the darkness. Only 3 other cars sat in the parking lot. "We'll stop here for the night," Robert announced. "Remember the rules." The rules were simple. Zuri stays between them at all times. Zuri doesn't speak to anyone. Zuri pretends to be their niece. If Zuri breaks any of these rules, they made it clear that her family would suffer. The woman went in to get a room while Robert stayed in the car with Zuri. 5 minutes later, she returned with a key, an actual metal key, not a key card. "Room 17? Around back," she said. Robert drove the car around to the rear of the building, where the rooms were hidden from the main road. No one was at the front desk to see them lead a young girl into the room. No security cameras that Zuri could spot. The room smelled of cigarettes and cheap cleaner. 2 beds with faded floral comforters. A TV that looked like it was from the early 2000s. A bathroom with yellowed tiles. "Get some sleep," the woman told Zuri, pointing to one of the beds. "We leave at dawn." Zuri sat on the edge of the bed, her mind racing despite her exhaustion. She watched as Robert checked the windows, making sure they were locked. The woman took the first shower, then Robert, leaving Zuri for last. In the bathroom, Zuri examined every corner, looking for anything that might help. The window was too small to climb through, even if she could get it open. No phone, nothing she could use as a weapon. Just small bottles of shampoo and thin, scratchy towels. When she came out dressed in the same clothes she'd been wearing for days, the woman was already in one bed, scrolling through her phone. Robert sat in the chair by the window, a small handgun visible on the table beside him. "Bed," he said simply. Zuri climbed under the covers of the empty bed, turning to face the wall. She heard them talking quietly, making plans for tomorrow, discussing someone who would meet them at the drop point. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. The gray-haired man at the gas station seemed so long ago now. Had he really called for help? Would anyone find her here in this nameless motel on a dark road in the middle of nowhere? Zuri closed her eyes, trying to slow her breathing. She needed to rest, to keep her mind sharp. Tomorrow would bring another chance, another opportunity. She had to be ready. As she drifted toward an uneasy sleep, Zuri thought of her family. Her mother, who would be sick with worry. Her little brother, who wouldn't understand why she hadn't come home. Her aunt, who might blame herself. "I'm still here," Zuri whispered silently to them. "I'm still fighting. Don't give up on me." Outside, a car engine rumbled to life, then faded into the distance. The woman's phone pinged with a message. Robert checked the window again, and somewhere out there, a gray-haired man from a gas station had called the police. Had given them a description, a license plate, a direction. Had told them about a young black girl with fear in her eyes who had silently asked for help. Somewhere out there, wheels were in motion. Zuri just had to stay alive long enough for them to find her. Officer Anthony Chen was 30 minutes from the end of his 12-hour shift when the call came through. His cruiser hummed quietly at a speed trap on the outskirts of Pine County, and he'd been thinking about the leftover lasagna waiting for him at home. The radio crackled, pulling him from thoughts of food and sleep. All units be advised. Possible abduction reported. Juvenile female, African American, approximately 13 to 15 years old, observed making domestic violence distress signal from a dark blue sedan heading eastbound on Interstate 76. License plate partial Charlie Tango 5. Caller reports female appeared in distress. Anthony sat up straight, reaching for his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 423. I'm near exit 118. What's the estimated location of the vehicle? Unit 423. Caller reported the vehicle at the Sunoco station off exit 112 approximately 15 minutes ago. Vehicle continued eastbound. Anthony started his engine. I'll head to the interstate and watch for the vehicle. Any other units responding? Negative, Unit 423. All other patrol units are handling a pileup on Route 9. State troopers notified, but closest unit is 40 minutes out. Anthony pulled onto the road, flipping his lights on but keeping the siren silent. Copy that. I'm en route. As he accelerated toward the interstate, Anthony's mind raced. The domestic violence hand signal had been making rounds on social media for years. His department had even done community workshops on it after a local woman used it to escape her abusive husband. The fact that a young girl was using it from a moving vehicle set off every alarm bell in his head. Dispatch, can you patch me through to the caller? Stand by, Unit 423. A moment later, a gruff voice came through the radio. Hello, this is Harold Winters. I called about the girl. Mr. Winters, this is Officer Chen. Can you tell me exactly what you saw? I was getting gas at the Sunoco. This car pulls up. Dark blue four-door, looked like a Honda or Toyota. Young black girl in the back seat, braids in her hair. When the man went to pump gas and the woman went inside, the girl looked right at me and did that hand signal thing. You know, the one for domestic violence? 4 fingers up, then tucks her thumb in. You're certain that's what you saw? Dead certain. My daughter's a social worker, taught me about it last year. The girl did it twice to make sure I saw it. She looked scared, officer. Real scared. Anthony's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Did you get a full license plate? Just the first 3 letters, CTF. Dark blue sedan, maybe a 2018 or 2019 model. Man was white, early 40s, baseball cap. Woman was white, blonde hair pulled back. They both seemed off, too controlling. Kept the girl between them when they went into the store. Anything else you can tell me? Just that I got a bad feeling. Been around a long time, officer. Know when something ain't right. You did good calling it in, sir. Thank you. Anthony ended the call as he merged onto the interstate, scanning the eastbound lanes. Sunday evening traffic was light, making any dark sedan stand out. His dashboard computer blinked as dispatch sent the BOLO alert. Be on lookout to all units in surrounding counties. 5 miles passed. Then 10. No sign of a dark blue sedan. Anthony began to worry they'd taken an exit or worse, turned off onto a back road where a young girl might never be found. His radio crackled again. Unit 423. Caller has provided additional information. Vehicle has a bumper sticker for Wilson State University on the left side of trunk. Copy that, dispatch. Anthony continued eastbound, eyes scanning each vehicle he passed. The interstate curved through pine forests, the setting sun casting long shadows across the road. He passed a minivan, a pickup truck hauling furniture, a red sports car, nothing matching the description. 20 miles from where he'd entered the interstate, Anthony spotted it. A dark blue sedan, 3 cars ahead in the right lane. He couldn't see the license plate from this distance, but as he carefully accelerated to close the gap, he noted the university bumper sticker on the trunk. Dispatch. This is Unit 423. I have a visual on what may be our vehicle. Dark blue sedan with university sticker. I'm moving in to confirm plate. Heart pounding, Anthony eased closer. CTF 297, it matched. Dispatch, plate confirmed. I have the vehicle in sight. Request backup at my location. Copy that, Unit 423. State troopers still 25 minutes out. County line is 8 miles ahead. Neighboring county has been notified and is dispatching units to the county line. Anthony weighed his options. Protocol said to wait for backup before attempting to stop a vehicle in a potential abduction case. The suspects might panic, might harm the child, might attempt to flee at high speeds. But if they crossed the county line and turned off onto one of the many unmarked forest roads, the girl's chances would plummet. Dispatch. I'll maintain visual but hold off on lights and sirens until backup is closer. Copy that. Unit 423. Anthony dropped back a few car lengths, keeping the sedan in sight while trying not to alert the occupants. His cruiser's computer beeped as information about the plate came through. The vehicle was registered to a Robert Turner of Philadelphia, over 200 miles away. No wants or warrants on the vehicle, but that didn't mean much. As they continued east, traffic thinned even more. Just the blue sedan, Anthony's cruiser, and a scattered few other vehicles on the long stretch of highway. The sun dipped below the tree line, casting the road in deepening shadows. Anthony switched on his headlights, maintaining his distance. The sedan's right turn signal blinked on. They were taking an exit. Exit 147, a rural interchange that led to a network of country roads and small towns. Dispatch, target vehicle is exiting the interstate at exit 147. Backup status? State troopers still 15 minutes out. County line is 3 miles ahead. Anthony made a split-second decision. I'm following them off the exit. If I lose visual and they cross county lines, we may not find them again. Use caution. Unit 423. Suspect may be armed. Anthony's training kicked in as he followed the sedan down the exit ramp, maintaining a 2-car distance. The exit led to a 2-lane county road with dense forest on both sides. No streetlights, no businesses, no witnesses. Just darkening woods and the occasional mailbox marking hidden driveways. The sedan slowed, driving exactly at the speed limit. They knew the rules of the road. Don't give cops a reason to pull you over. Anthony hung back, flashers and sirens still off. His eyes flicked to his GPS. The county line was 2 miles ahead, then another mile to the nearest town where the neighboring county's deputies might intercept them. The road curved sharply to the right, revealing a small gas station and convenience store, the only business for miles. To Anthony's surprise, the sedan's turn signal came on again. They were pulling into the gas station. Dispatch, suspects are stopping at the Hilltop Gas and Go on County Road 22. I'm going to make contact. Alert back up to my location. Anthony pulled into the gas station, parking at an angle that would partially block the sedan if they tried to flee. He could see 3 people inside the car, the male driver, the female passenger, and in the back seat a young girl with braided hair. The girl's eyes met his in the reflection of the side mirror, and even from this distance, he could see the hope that flashed across her face. Taking a deep breath, Anthony stepped out of his cruiser, one hand resting on his holster. "Stay calm," he whispered to himself. By the book. The driver's side window of the sedan rolled down as Anthony approached. The man behind the wheel smiled pleasantly, but his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Evening, officer. Something wrong?" Anthony positioned himself so he could see all 3 occupants. "Good evening, sir. Just doing a routine check. Could I see your license and registration, please?" "Of course." The man reached slowly for the glove compartment. "We're just passing through, heading to visit family." Anthony nodded, keeping his expression neutral while studying the young girl in the back seat. She sat perfectly still, her eyes wide and alert. No visible injuries, but her clothes looked rumpled, as if worn for several days. "Where are you folks headed?" Anthony asked casually. The woman answered quickly, too quickly. "My sister's place in Greenville. Family reunion this weekend?" "That's nice," Anthony said, accepting the documents the man handed him. "And who's this young lady in the back?" "Our niece," the man said. "She's coming along for the trip." Anthony smiled at the girl. "What's your name, miss?" Before she could answer, the woman cut in. "Her name is Tanya. She's shy around strangers." The girl's expression never changed, but her eyes screamed for help. "I understand," Anthony said, studying the license. Robert Turner, Philadelphia address matching the vehicle registration. Everything looked in order, which made his gut feeling even more troubling. "If you don't mind, I'd like to speak with each of you separately." Standard procedure for interstate travelers. The man's smile faltered slightly. "Is that really necessary, officer? We're running a bit late as it is." "It won't take but a minute," Anthony assured him, hand still resting near his weapon. "Sir, if you could step out and speak with me by my vehicle?" "Ma'am, please stay in the car for now." The man hesitated, glancing at the woman. Some unspoken message passed between them. "Is there a problem, officer?" the man asked, his voice hardening slightly. "No problem at all," Anthony said evenly. "Just need to ask a few routine questions." As the man reluctantly opened his door, Anthony caught movement in his peripheral vision. The girl in the back seat was slowly raising her hand, 4 fingers extended, then tucking her thumb across her palm. The same signal reported by the caller at the Sunoco station. Anthony's radio crackled. Unit 423, be advised. State troopers 5 minutes from your location. The man paused, half out of the car. Look, officer, we really need to get going. My sister-in-law is expecting us. This will just take a moment, sir, Anthony said firmly. Please step over to my vehicle. As the man complied, Anthony positioned himself to keep both him and the car in view. The rural gas station was empty except for a sleepy clerk inside. No other customers, no witnesses. Just Anthony, the suspects, and the girl silently pleading for rescue. 5 minutes until backup arrived. 5 minutes to keep everyone calm and safe. 5 minutes that would determine whether a young girl went home to her family or disappeared forever into the darkness beyond the county line. Officer Chen kept his voice steady as he guided Robert Turner toward the patrol car, positioning himself to maintain a clear view of both the man and the sedan. The gas station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the empty parking lot. Only the bored clerk inside the convenience store, half watching a small TV, provided any witness to what was unfolding. Sir, can you tell me where you're coming from today? Anthony asked, keeping his tone conversational while his mind raced through training protocols for suspected abductions. Philadelphia, Turner replied, shoulders tense despite his attempted smile. Left this morning. Long drive. And the young lady in your car, you said she's your niece? That's right. My wife's sister's kid, Tanya. Does Tanya have ID with her? Turner's smile faltered. She's 14. Doesn't have a driver's license yet. School ID, perhaps? Anthony suggested, watching Turner's reaction carefully. Probably left it at home. Kids, you know. Never remember the important stuff. Anthony nodded, feigning agreement. And you said you're heading to Greenville for a family reunion? That's right. Interesting, Anthony said, keeping his tone light. Greenville's actually in the opposite direction. You'd need to head west, not east. Turner's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Right, of course. I meant Greenfield. My wife's sister lives in Greenfield. Easy to mix those up. The radio on Anthony's shoulder crackled. Unit 423 state troopers now 3 minutes from your location. County deputies also en route. Turner's eyes flicked to the radio, then back to Anthony's face. Something cold and calculating replaced the friendly demeanor. Look, officer, we really need to get going. It's getting late and we've got a long drive ahead. Just a few more questions, sir. Anthony kept his stance casual but ready. Could you tell me your niece's full name and birth date? Tanya Wilson, born May 16th, 2010. Anthony made a note on his pad, then glanced toward the car. The woman was leaning back, speaking to the girl. The girl's face remained expressionless, but her eyes never left Anthony. Mr. Turner, I'm going to speak with your wife and niece now. Please remain here. Is that really necessary? We haven't done anything wrong. Standard procedure, sir. Won't take long. As Anthony approached the sedan, the woman rolled down her window, her smile tight and rehearsed. Up close, Anthony could see stress lines around her eyes, makeup applied too heavily to cover fatigue. Evening, ma'am. Could I get your name? Diane Turner, she replied smoothly. Is there a problem, officer? Just routine questions for interstate travelers, Anthony said. Could I see some identification? The woman dug through her purse, producing a Pennsylvania driver's license. Anthony examined it carefully. Diane Turner, same Philadelphia address as her husband. Everything looked legitimate, which only deepened his unease. Mrs. Turner, could you step out of the vehicle for a moment? I'd like to speak with each of you individually. Her smile never wavered, but her knuckles whitened around her purse strap. Is that really necessary? It's getting late and Tanya's tired from the trip. It won't take long, Anthony assured her, opening the door himself. Please step over by my cruiser. I'd like to speak with Tanya alone for a moment. The woman's eyes darted to her husband, who stood rigidly by the patrol car. A silent communication passed between them. Tanya doesn't talk much to strangers, the woman said. She's shy. I should stay with her. I'm good with kids, Anthony replied firmly. Please join your husband by my vehicle. With obvious reluctance, the woman stepped out. Anthony waited until she had joined her husband before leaning down to look at the girl in the back seat. Up close, he could see the fear in her eyes, the way her fingers nervously plucked at a loose thread on her jeans. Hi there, he said gently. Mind if I sit with you for a minute? The girl nodded slightly. Anthony opened the back door and slid in beside her, positioning himself so the Turners couldn't see their conversation. "My name is Officer Chen," he said softly. "Can you tell me your name?" The girl glanced toward the Turners, then back at Anthony. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Not Tanya. What is your name?" Zuri Johnson." Anthony felt a surge of confirmation. "Zuri, are these people your aunt and uncle?" She shook her head slightly. "Are you related to them in any way?" Another small headshake. "Do you feel safe with them?" Tears welled in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "They took me 3 days ago." Anthony nodded, keeping his expression neutral for the benefit of the watching Turners. "Zuri, I need you to listen carefully. State troopers will be here any minute. I want you to stay in this car. Don't get out no matter what happens. Understand?" She nodded, wiping quickly at her eyes. "You're safe now," Anthony assured her. "I promise." He squeezed her shoulder gently, then stepped out of the car, closing the door behind him. As he approached the Turners, he could see the tension in their bodies, the way they stood slightly closer together, ready to support each other. "Interesting conversation," Anthony said casually. "The young lady says her name is Zuri Johnson, not Tanya Wilson, and she says she's not related to either of you." The man's face hardened. "She's confused. Gets anxious around authority figures. Confused about her own name?" Anthony raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a mix-up." "She's going through a phase," the woman interjected. "Playing make-believe. Her therapist says it's normal." "I see." Anthony took a step back, subtly positioning himself between the Turners and their car. "And which therapist would that be?" The Turners exchanged glances. The man's hand moved slowly toward his jacket pocket. "Sir, keep your hands where I can see them," Anthony said sharply, his own hand moving to his holster. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder by the second. The man's eyes darted toward the road, calculating. "You're making a mistake," he said flatly. "We haven't done anything wrong." "Then you won't mind waiting for my colleagues to arrive so we can sort this out," Anthony replied. State troopers, county deputies, plenty of people to help clear up any confusion. The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flashed at the edge of the highway, approaching fast. The man's expression changed, desperation replacing calculation. "Look," he said, his voice dropping. "There's been a misunderstanding. The girl, she's troubled. Runs away from home. We're just trying to help her." "By taking her across state lines without her parents' knowledge?" Anthony asked. "That's a federal offense, Mr. Turner, if that's even your real name." The first state trooper vehicle pulled into the gas station, followed closely by a county sheriff's SUV. Within seconds, 4 officers surrounded the Turners, weapons not drawn but hands resting on holsters. "Officer Chen," the lead trooper greeted him. "What's the situation?" "Suspected abduction," Anthony replied calmly. "Young female in the vehicle identifies as Zuri Johnson, not related to these individuals. Says they took her 3 days ago." The Turners' faces showed the first real emotion Anthony had seen. Fear, not the righteous indignation of innocent people wrongly accused, but the cornered fear of those whose plans had unraveled. "Separate them, search them, and secure the vehicle," the trooper ordered. "Officer Chen, stay with the girl." As officers led the Turners to separate vehicles, Anthony returned to the sedan where Zuri sat watching, eyes wide. "You're safe now," he told her, opening the door. "These officers are here to help. Can you tell us where you're from? Who your parents are?" Zuri nodded, her voice stronger now. "I live in Westbrook. My mom is Layla Johnson. She works at Memorial Hospital." One of the county deputies was already on his radio calling in the information. Another officer approached with a tablet. "Chen, we just got a hit on NCIC. Zuri Johnson, 14, reported missing from Westbrook 3 days ago. Physical description matches," Anthony nodded. "Zuri, we're going to contact your family right away. They've been looking for you." For the first time, Zuri's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought I'd never see them again." While paramedics checked Zuri over for injuries, officers searched the sedan. Anthony watched as they pulled item after item from the trunk. A laptop, several phones, a camera, rolls of duct tape, and a stack of prepaid credit cards. "Officer Chen," called one of the troopers. "You need to see this." On the laptop screen was a series of social media profiles, all belonging to young girls between 12 and 15 years old. Each profile had detailed notes attached, School schedules, family information, extracurricular activities, routes walked home. Zuri's profile was there, along with 6 others. 3 of the names had been checked off. This isn't their first victim, the trooper said grimly, and they weren't working alone. While officers continued processing the scene, Anthony sat with Zuri in the back of an ambulance, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Can you tell me how they found you?" he asked gently. Zuri nodded. "The woman, she knew things about me. My name, my aunt's name. She even knew about the book club my aunt goes to. Said there was an emergency at home." She paused, fingers clutching the blanket. "I should have called to check first." "This isn't your fault," Anthony assured her. "These people are professionals. They research their targets carefully. How did they know so much about me?" Anthony hesitated, then decided she deserved the truth. "From what we can tell, they studied your social media accounts. Your debate team page had photos, schedules, information about your family." Zuri's eyes widened in understanding. "I never thought." "No one does," Anthony said softly. "That's how they operate." A deputy approached, phone in hand. "Officer Chen, we've got Zuri's mother on the line." Zuri reached for the phone with trembling hands. As she heard her mother's voice, fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Mom, it's me. I'm okay. I'm safe now." Anthony stepped away to give her privacy, joining the officers gathered around the sedan. The Turners, or whatever their real names were, sat in separate patrol cars, their faces grim. "What have we got?" Anthony asked. "Robert Turner's real name is Alan Mercer," a state trooper replied. 3 priors for sexual exploitation of minors. Diane is actually Vanessa Holt. No record, but her phone has communications with at least 4 other individuals regarding merchandise and delivery dates. Anthony's stomach turned. Human trafficking. Looks that way. FBI's been notified. They're sending a team from the field office. Anthony looked back at Zuri, still on the phone with her mother, tears streaming down her face. Despite everything she'd been through, she'd found the courage to signal for help, to trust a stranger, to hold on until rescue came. She saved herself, Anthony said quietly. That hand signal, if she hadn't known it, if she hadn't used it. The trooper nodded. And if that man at the gas station hadn't recognized it and called it in, and if you hadn't been in the right place at the right time? He shook his head. A lot of things had to go right for this to end well. As night settled fully over the gas station, Anthony watched FBI agents arrive, taking control of the scene, the evidence, the suspects. But his focus remained on Zuri. 1 girl saved, but how many others were still out there, waiting for someone to recognize their silent pleas for help? The investigation was just beginning, and somehow Anthony knew this case would change everything for Zuri, for himself, and for countless others they hadn't even met yet. 3 days after Zuri's rescue, Officer Anthony Chen sat in the Pine County Sheriff's Department conference room, surrounded by evidence boards, laptop screens, and the grim faces of a multi-agency task force. FBI agents, state police investigators, and local officers from 3 counties filled every chair. The case had exploded beyond anything Anthony could have imagined when he first responded to that distress call. "Let's go through what we know," said Agent Rivera, the FBI lead on the case. She stood beside a whiteboard covered with photos, names, and connecting lines. Alan Mercer and Vanessa Holt were transporters in a sophisticated trafficking network operating across 4 states. They were moving Zuri Johnson to a location in the mountains where at least 3 other minors are believed to be held. Anthony studied the evidence board. Photos of 7 teenagers were pinned at the top, all girls between 13 and 15, all from middle-class neighborhoods, all high-achieving students. Zuri's photo had a green checkmark beside it. 2 others did as well. The remaining 4 had question marks. "We've rescued 3 victims so far," Rivera continued. "Zuri Johnson, plus 2 others we found at the mountain property after Mercer's phone gave us the location. 4 others remain missing, but we have leads on all of them thanks to the files recovered from their devices." A detective from the state police raised his hand. "What connects the victims?" "They're from different towns, different schools." "That's where it gets interesting," Rivera said, clicking to a new slide on her presentation. "All 7 girls participate in competitive academic activities, debate team, math olympiad, science competitions, events that travel to other schools, post schedules online, share team photos on social media." Anthony leaned forward. Something had been bothering him since the night he found Zuri. How did Mercer and Holt know so much about Zuri's family? She said they knew her aunt's name, even the book her aunt was reading for book club. Rivera nodded grimly. That's the breakthrough we had yesterday. We were granted access to Mercer's cloud storage. She clicked to another slide showing a professional headshot of a smiling blonde woman in her 40s. This is Dr. Pamela Richards, school counselor at Westwood Elementary in Philadelphia. Also Vanessa Holt's sister. Murmurs filled the room as officers processed this information. Dr. Richards has access to student records from across the district, including family emergency contacts, schedules, psychological profiles, everything a predator would need to identify vulnerable targets and gain their trust. Rivera's voice was tight with controlled anger. She's been feeding information to this network for at least 2 years. A school counselor, Anthony said, disgust evident in his voice. Someone parents and kids are supposed to trust. It gets worse, Rivera continued. Richards coordinated with academic competition organizers across the state. She identified high-achieving students, especially those from stable families who wouldn't immediately fit the profile of runaway risk. She passed information to her sister's network, who then spent weeks researching the targets on social media, learning their routines, their family connections, even the books their relatives were reading. An officer from the neighboring county spoke up. Why target high achievers specifically? Wouldn't they be more likely to fight back like Zuri did? Rivera clicked to another slide showing financial records. These weren't random abductions. This was a sophisticated operation with wealthy clients placing specific orders. The files we recovered included detailed profiles of each girl, academic achievements, special talents, physical descriptions. The buyers were paying premium prices for exceptional merchandise. Their words, not mine. The room fell silent as the full horror sank in. The good news, Rivera continued after a moment, is that we've identified most of the network. The bad news is that we're still missing 4 girls. Mercer and Holt aren't talking, but their devices are. We've got teams working around the clock to locate the remaining victims. As the meeting continued, Anthony's mind drifted to Zuri. After medical evaluation and initial interviews, she had been reunited with her family. He'd visited once briefly to check on her. She'd been quiet but composed, surrounded by relieved family members. Her mother had hugged Anthony so tightly he could barely breathe. Officer Chen. Rivera's voice pulled him back to the present. You were first on scene. What stood out to you about the suspect's behavior? Anthony thought for a moment. They were well prepared, had answers for everything, perfect documentation. If Zuri hadn't used that hand signal, if Mr. Winters hadn't recognized it and called it in, he shook his head. They would have disappeared with her. Rivera nodded. That's consistent with what we're seeing. This network has been operating undetected for years. They're professionals. They know how to blend in, how to avoid raising flags. The only reason we caught them is because a 14-year-old girl had the presence of mind to signal for help, and a civilian knew what the signal meant. The meeting continued for another hour, discussing search strategies, interview techniques, evidence processing. When it finally ended, Anthony gathered his notes, his mind heavy with everything they'd learned. As he walked to his car, his phone rang. It was his lieutenant. Chen, you need to get to Memorial Hospital. Zuri Johnson has asked to speak with you. Says she remembered something important. 30 minutes later, Anthony walked through the hospital corridors to a small conference room where Zuri sat with her mother and a victim advocate. She looked different now. Still tired, but more present, her eyes clear and focused. Officer Chen, she said, standing as he entered. Thank you for coming. Of course, he replied, taking a seat across from her. You remembered something? Zuri nodded. I've been trying to piece everything together. The things they said when they thought I was asleep, the places we stopped. She pulled out a notebook where she'd been writing down her recollections. There was a name they mentioned several times. Someone they called the teacher. They were supposed to deliver me to this person. Anthony leaned forward.
Did they ever use a full name?
No, just the teacher, but Zuri hesitated, glancing at her mother. There's something else. A few months ago, I went to a regional debate competition. There was a judge there, a woman who paid special attention to me. Told me I had exceptional talent, asked about my family, my goals. She gave me her card, said she could help me apply for scholarships. Do you still have the card? Anthony asked, his pulse quickening. My mom found it in my desk yesterday. Zuri slid a business card across the table. Anthony picked it up. Dr. Elaine Foster, educational consultant. The address listed was in the same mountain region where they'd found the other victims. I think she was scouting for targets, Zuri said quietly. There were other girls she talked to as well. I remember seeing her with Danny Williams. She's one of the missing girls, right? Anthony nodded, already texting Rivera the information. This could be the connection we've been looking for. Zuri, this is incredibly helpful. There's more, Zuri continued, her voice stronger now. When they had me in that motel, the night before you found us, I overheard them talking about a processing center disguised as a tutoring academy. Somewhere that looked normal from the outside, where no one would question teenagers coming and going. Anthony's phone buzzed with an immediate response from Rivera. Foster is on our list. Address matches property owned by Shell Company linked to Richards. Team en route now. Zuri, Anthony said, genuine admiration in his voice. You're still helping save lives. This information could lead us to the other missing girls. Zuri's mother reached over to squeeze her daughter's hand. She's been working on this for days. Couldn't sleep. Just kept writing down everything she could remember. The FBI team heading the investigation will want to talk to you, Anthony told Zuri. Would that be okay? Zuri nodded. I want to help find the others, and she hesitated. I want to understand how this happened, how they chose me, how they knew so much about my family. Anthony shared what they'd learned about the school counselor, the targeting of academic competitors, the social media research. As he spoke, Zuri's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. Our debate team posts everything online, she said quietly. Team photos, competition schedules, our biographies. We thought it was just for college applications for networking. She looked up at Anthony. We made it so easy for them. This isn't your fault, he said firmly. These people are predators, sophisticated, organized predators who exploited systems everyone thought were safe. Zuri was silent for a moment. When I first got home, I was so angry at myself for getting into that car, for not checking with my aunt first. She took a deep breath. But then I realized I got out. I remembered that hand signal from a video that went viral. I used it when I had the chance. And it worked, Anthony nodded. You saved yourself, Zuri, and now you're helping save others. Hours later, Anthony stood in the FBI field office watching live updates from the raid on Foster Learning Academy. Agents had found 2 of the missing girls on the property. The remaining 2 had been moved, but documents recovered on site pointed to their location. Additional arrests were being made across 3 states as the network unraveled. The scale of the operation stunned even veteran investigators. School records from dozens of districts, competition rosters, social media profiles analyzed for vulnerabilities, financial transactions through multiple shell companies, all orchestrated by people in positions of trust. The school counselor, the educational consultant, even a school bus driver and a pediatric nurse. They hid in plain sight, Rivera said, standing beside Anthony as they watched the operation unfold. Used their legitimate positions to access victims, to gain trust, to gather information. How many others are out there? Anthony asked quietly. How many networks like this are operating right now? Rivera had no answer for that. Neither did anyone else in the room. Late that night, as Anthony finally headed home, his phone pinged with a message from Zuri's mother. Thought you'd want to see this. Attached was a photo of Zuri, seated at their kitchen table with several other teenagers and parents, all looking intently at a laptop. A follow-up message explained. Zuri organized a workshop for her friends, teaching them about online safety, the hand signals, warning signs. She says it's step 1. Anthony smiled for the first time in days. In the midst of a case that revealed the darkest aspects of human nature, Zuri Johnson had found a way to create light. To take her trauma and transform it into protection for others, the investigation would continue. More arrests would be made. Systems would be examined and hopefully improved. But tonight, in one kitchen, a 14-year-old girl was already changing the world. 6 months after her rescue, Zuri Johnson stood at the front of her school auditorium, facing a crowd of students, parents, and teachers. The room was silent as she adjusted the microphone. At 14, now 15, most teenagers would be terrified of public speaking. But after what Zuri had lived through, standing on a stage seemed simple by comparison. I was lucky, she began, her voice steady and clear. I saw a TikTok video about the hand signal for domestic violence. I remembered it when I needed it most. I used it when I had the chance, and someone recognized it. She glanced toward the back of the room where Officer Anthony Chen stood, arms crossed, a small smile on his face. Not everyone gets that lucky. That's why we're here today. In the 6 months since her abduction, Zuri had transformed. The quiet, scared girl in the back seat of that sedan was now a powerful advocate. Her story had made national news, carefully controlled with her identity protected at first. But as the investigation expanded and more arrests were made, Zuri had made a decision that surprised everyone. She wanted to use her name, her face, her voice. My mom didn't want me to do this, Zuri continued, smiling at her mother in the front row. She wanted to protect me, keep me safe. I understand that. But staying quiet doesn't keep anyone safe. It just helps the bad people hide. Behind her, a slideshow began playing, photos of hand signals. The domestic violence signal she had used, plus others developed for different emergency situations. QR codes linking to resources, warning signs of grooming and trafficking. These people didn't snatch me off the street, Zuri explained. They studied me. They researched my family. They knew exactly what to say to make me trust them. And they found me through social media posts that I thought were completely harmless. The audience was rapt as Zuri walked them through her experience. Not the terrifying details, but the tactics the traffickers had used. How they'd identified her through debate team photos. How they'd gathered information about her family. How they'd created a perfect trap designed specifically for her. This isn't just my story, she continued. The same network targeted at least 7 other girls that we know of. All of us were chosen because we were high achievers, good students, kids with bright futures. Her voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion she'd shown, like we were products with special features. In the audience, several parents wiped away tears. Others held their children closer. Thanks to the work of law enforcement across multiple states, all 7 of us made it home. Zuri gestured to the side of the stage, where 3 other teenage girls stepped forward to join her. This is Danny, Lily, and Maya. They were also targeted. They also survived. And they're also done being silent. The 4 girls stood side by side, a powerful image of resilience. In the months since the rescue, they had formed an unbreakable bond, supporting each other through nightmares, therapy sessions, and court proceedings. We created the Signal Project 6 weeks ago. Zuri continued as her friends returned to their seats. We started with just the 4 of us sitting around my kitchen table. Now we have chapters in 27 schools across 5 states. Our website has had over 200,000 visitors. Our training videos have been viewed more than 1 million times. The slideshow behind her shifted to photos of Signal Project workshops in classrooms, community centers, and online webinars. Teenagers teaching other teenagers about safety signals, online privacy, and trust instincts. We're not telling kids to be afraid of everyone, Zuri clarified. We're teaching them to be aware, to recognize warning signs, to know what to do if something feels wrong, and most importantly, to look out for each other. At the back of the room, Officer Chen watched with pride. In his 15 years on the force, he'd seen countless victims of terrible crimes. Most retreated from the world trying to forget. Few had the courage to turn their trauma into action the way Zuri had. Over the past 6 months, he'd become a mentor and friend to Zuri and the other girls. He'd helped them develop their safety curriculum, connected them with resources, and watched in amazement as their small project grew into a movement. None of this would have happened without the people who helped save us, Zuri continued, her eyes finding Chen in the crowd. Officer Chen, who responded to that distress call, Mr. Winters, who recognized my hand signal at the gas station and called 911, Agent Rivera and her FBI team, who tracked down the entire network. She paused. But it all started with one person recognizing one signal. That's how powerful awareness can be. As Zuri continued her presentation, Chen thought about the changes her case had sparked. The investigation had led to 37 arrests across 6 states. School districts nationwide were reviewing their policies on staff access to student information. Social media platforms were implementing new privacy defaults for accounts belonging to minors. And perhaps most importantly, law enforcement agencies were updating their training to include recognition of distress signals. Chen himself had become the department's point person on trafficking awareness, conducting training sessions for officers, dispatchers, and community members. His experience with Zuri's case had transformed his career and given him a new purpose. We're now going to demonstrate the signals everyone should know, Zuri announced, bringing Chen's attention back to the presentation. We'll practice them together, and then break into small groups for more training. For the next hour, the auditorium was filled with activity as Zuri and her team led workshops on safety signals, online privacy settings, and situational awareness. Parents worked alongside their children, practicing the hand gestures, downloading safety apps, reviewing social media settings. When the formal program ended, Chen made his way through the crowd to Zuri, who was surrounded by students asking questions. "Another successful event," he said when the crowd finally thinned. Zuri smiled, the confident expression of someone who had found her purpose. 27 schools down, thousands to go. "Your mother told me about the governor's invitation," Chen said. "That's a big opportunity," Zuri nodded. "They want us to help develop a statewide curriculum, training for every school, every community center, every public library." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a rare gesture of nervousness from the now poised young advocate. "Do you think we're ready for that?" "I think you've been ready since day one," Chen replied honestly. "You turned something terrible into something powerful. Not many people could do that." Later, as Chen helped Zuri and her team pack up their materials, her mother approached him. "The nightmares are less frequent now," she said quietly, watching her daughter laugh with her friends. "The therapist says helping others is part of her healing process." "She's helping more people than she knows," Chen replied. "The training program she developed is being adapted for our department. We're training every officer to recognize these signals. She talks about you a lot," Zuri's mother said, "about how you saw her, really saw her, when she was invisible to everyone else." Chen watched as Zuri demonstrated a signal to a younger student who had stayed behind. She wasn't invisible. She made sure of that. As they left the auditorium, Chen's phone buzzed with a notification. A news alert from a neighboring state. Trafficking attempt thwarted when teen uses hand signal. Gas station attendant recognizes distress code. He showed it to Zuri, who read it silently, then looked up with tears in her eyes. "It's working," she whispered. "It's working," Chen agreed. That evening, Chen sat in his living room reviewing his notes for the law enforcement training session he would lead the following day. His presentation included Zuri's case with her permission as a textbook example of how awareness and quick action could save lives. His phone rang. "Agent Rivera from the FBI just wanted to update you," she said when he answered. "Dr. Richards took a plea deal. She's giving up everyone she worked with, including clients. This case is going to dismantle trafficking networks across the entire eastern seaboard." "Good," Chen said simply. "There's something else," Rivera continued. "The Signal Project materials you sent over? We're implementing them as part of our community outreach program, nationwide." After they hung up, Chen sat quietly, thinking about how a series of small actions had created such enormous change. Mr. Winters recognizing a hand signal from a social media video, Chen himself following his instincts during a routine traffic stop, Zuri finding the courage to transform her trauma into action. The next morning, Chen stood before a room full of law enforcement officers from across the state. On the screen behind him was a photo of Zuri and her team at their most recent workshop. "This case began with a silent cry for help," he told his colleagues. "A 14-year-old girl making a simple hand gesture she'd learned from social media. One person recognized it. One call was made. One life was saved, which led to many more lives saved." He clicked to the next slide, a map showing Signal Project chapters spreading across the country. "But the real story isn't about the rescue," he continued. "It's about what came after. It's about a young girl who refused to be just a victim, who turned her experience into a movement that's now protecting thousands of others." As he continued his presentation, Chen thought about Zuri, who was at that moment speaking to a middle school in a neighboring county. Just one of dozens of presentations she would give that month. Just one small part of the wave of change she had created. Sometimes, Chen reflected, the most powerful forces for good emerged from the darkest circumstances. Sometimes the smallest signals, if recognized, could change everything.